back for our Getting Through the Holidays energy reports, crypto news, and reflections on the energies of the day. Here from transCODES. My name is Bryndis, energy healer and energy coach. And welcome if you are watching this for the first time, or if you're watching the recording. I know that we pick a different theme every day, and that theme is actually predetermined by the energies of the day. So we're going to go through some of the subjectively experienced things that people have reported to me today. I work as an energy coach for energetically sensitives and empaths, awakening people, visionaries. And this means that just due to the selection of my clients, I get to talk to a lot of people with precognitive abilities, with the abilities to actually connect with some of the energies that are going on during the day. So we had a lot of reports today, but I do want you to know that the reason why I'm doing this live every day here is to help you to maneuver, to navigate through the holidays. And there is a chat function which allows you to ask live questions. So please use this opportunity here to ask me questions. We're not going to have a panel guest today, which is fitting because our today's subject or topic is isolation and loneliness. All right, but oh yes, and before I forget, let me know where you are watching from. What country are you watching from? This is the coolest part for me. But also, what really makes a difference is when you click the like button, because that distributes the video. So since I'm not monetizing my videos, that's the way how you can contribute and how you can support transCODES and my efforts here. So let's look at some of the energies today before we go and reflect on isolation. These days prior here leading up to today, today's December the 23rd, one day before Christmas Eve in most of the Northern Hemisphere, or no, not most, but the Western world. But also other holidays are going on. And this is naturally the time where we get a little tense and where things are a bit challenging for us energetically sensitives, not only because there's a lot of bombardment that is going on. I mean, it starts with the Christmas music, right? But it's really in the collective itself that there's this anticipation. There's this this pressure to get gifts, to clean the house, to get ready. A lot of people are traveling. It's very uprooting. So adding to the collective energies that are going on at this time, which I reflect on in those weekly energy updates. So if you have not looked at that yet, you can go back here on my YouTube channel and listen to the energy update for this week. So it's natural, okay? But at the same time, it's also something that reminds us energetically sensitives why we have such an apprehension, like say going to the stores, or, being out there and mingling with the masses, okay? So we have a little bit of a hostile attitude, and that gets reconfirmed in these days leading up to the holidays. And I want to give you a heads up, though. Interestingly, today, the energies relaxed a little bit. Overall, it was actually kind of like a nice day. I'm expecting this shift to even intensify towards sort of the positive here with tomorrow. And that has nothing to do with the fact that it's Christmas Eve tomorrow. It has something to do with just the overall reach of a peak. We've reached a peak yesterday, and it's releasing right now. So unfortunately, for those of us who are completely unaware of energies, hey Australia, hey Denmark, hey USA, Illinois, Canada. Oh wow, this is so cool. When there's a point where it just, that the energy just can't go anywhere, and where we have to release. And the worst part is actually when it still builds, because that's when we tend to go into our coping mechanisms, into our distraction, into our fight, flight, or freeze. And we talked a little bit about this yesterday with Roger, who's an expert in addictions and addictive structure, and how our coping then could be regarded as addiction, because it is our way out. It's the getting through part. Okay, the reason why I call it this daily live stream "Getting Through" is not to present another coping mechanism, but to really address this aspect of that we're trying to just get through things. All right. In energy work, we learn very quickly that everything is energy, and energy has to transform. It can't just go away. So when we suppress things or repress things, they've got to go somewhere. And unfortunately, within our energy system, that means that we can only either release them inward or store them inwardly, or release them outwardly. And that usually means venting, reacting, acting out. And this is the other reason why we do these Getting Through the Holiday series. We've started this years back, really just to be there in a hotline 24/7 for people who experience these really deep, dark moments of dark nights of the soul. And we actually experienced over the years that it's a lot more helpful to actually talk about things instead of talking to people individually. I'm producing these videos every day. So yes, it is kind of natural to go there in times where we feel bombarded, but it also brings up the question, or the need for having healthy release mechanisms. So here at transCODES, we are currently in a really intense Grace Gaia Sophia marathon, inner reconciliation, and deeper divine connection, and so forth. And people in those energy sessions that we do here, that anybody can join, they usually bring the essence of what we have to deal with at a certain time forward on a very deep energetic layer. And admittedly, that is not accessible for everybody, but we get a really good preview, And so this today was actually a really nice day, where some of the resistances that we still felt yesterday, and the fears and these, being triggered all the time and being sort of reactive all the time, is starting to calm down a bit. And I'd love to be positive and say, oh, that's because, the holidays and people expressing lovingness. I don't think it has anything to do with this, because in my experience, usually when people get together, that's normally when things escalate. But if you are here now, and if you are watching this, I want you to know that there are many, many ways how you can prevent this build-up, okay? Because the build-up is usually what leads to the explosion, what leads to the domestic quarrels, to the disappointments, and to all these really intense, deep traumas, that we then carry in us for the rest of the year, and which then builds the anticipation for the next holidays, which is kind of like the phase that we're in right now. So we're in the anticipation, and that can be a positive thing, and that can be a negative thing, depending on how we associate the holidays with experiences in our past. And I don't know about you, but for me, I grew up in like an alcoholic household with an alcoholic dad. For me, the holidays were, as much as I wanted them to be really beautiful, and I'm very big into baking cookies and making everything feel really homey. I have to say, if I look back into my childhood, this was actually never accomplished. That there was always an escalation, and the latest on the 25th, there was, there was this drunk acting out, and as a child, of course, that leaves an imprint on you. And in my adult life then, and also as a mother of 3 children, I've learned how to channel this within me and really not get caught up in this anticipation, neither in the good nor in the bad. Okay, so if I don't get sucked into this like super stressful, getting, the gifts and all that. We do gifts, and we have a Christmas tree. Yes, I mean, we're not churchgoers, but I'm Scandinavian. I love the winter solstice. I love celebrating light. I love candles. I love anything that sparkles and shines, and so it's a beautiful time for me to connect with my light and create a lot of light around me. And wow, we even got somebody from Western Australia. So the Australians are really active here tonight. That's cool. I guess most people are out shopping in the United States, and the Europeans are all sleeping. Yes, Cheryl, it feels like the season triggers performance anxiety in people, because we have to deliver, okay? And if we don't have to deliver, say we are not in that place where we have to do like Christmas tree and gifts and food and all that, but we're invited to go to these social functions, then we have to show up. So there's something in us that gets triggered, and this is our energy system knows that, and it goes into this anticipation. So even if really nothing is going on in your life, you may actually feel this with this inner tension, and you will feel a bit more like having a short fuse and walking on eggshells and everything coming in from the outside. I don't know about you, but I've had this today. Massive bombardment from other people. Of course, I'm also asking for it. I'm asking for feedback. But, when my mother called, I actually felt like, oh my God, not that too. So there's this like everything begins to become a burden. And that's something we need to neutralize. We need to counteract that a bit. Now, when we get into the reflection about how to, possibly deal with the feeling of not being connected and isolated, I'm going to talk about some healthy ways of dealing with this. But before we go there, I want to give a brief reflection on the crypto market today. There too, a sort of a decrease in tension, a relaxation has happened. Those of you who are not familiar with Bitcoin and Co. and all these coins that are there, just don't pay attention to what I'm saying. But for most of us, people who are in cryptos, who've invested or who are actually trading, today was a cool buying signal. There was a correction that was going on. That I reported about yesterday, and we're going to see more corrections. This is just in the volatility of the times and the market. So the market is really just a reflection, but it also has to do with the nature of the investors that are coming in. When you're talking stock market, you're talking mostly professional traders, and they use software, they know how to utilize tools to not get into this emotionality, this irrationality. And one of the big things that non-professional investors do, and I hate to say it this way, but is, to panic and to sell when there's a correction, and they feel motivated to buy when the course of a specific company or coin or whatever rises. So they buy high and sell low. And guess what? This is what the system, the negative side of the system, and you can transpose this to anything really, consumerism and so forth, lives off. Okay? So if you want to be part of this crypto world that is bringing forward amazing opportunities and wonderful teams and wonderful new applications, but they're all in the birthing state still. So you have to. It's kind of like every woman that was pregnant in the past can maybe relate to it. It's kind of like going through pregnancy. They're still incubating. And that means that there's going to be a lot of ups and downs and also a lot of fears. So this market is highly irrational for these reasons. That there's primarily unprofessional traders or investors. There's primarily the insecurity, uncertainty of the times, and we're at a brink of massive transformation of our financial system, and partially due to the crypto market. So, I mean, there's huge opportunities, but also huge fears, and so you've got to withstand these ups and downs, just like in your private life. You cannot go with every little wave of frustration. I talked to a friend today, and her car got robbed today, and her daughter's car got totaled yesterday. All right, and she talked to me, and she's like, "Oh, it's all right. I transcended it right away, and it's okay, and nothing. I have my phone and my money and my keys on me, and my child is okay." And to evaluate the situation, to focus on the most important thing for you. Okay, and the reason, why you, in regards to investment, but also in regards to maybe meeting your family, why you are with other people, why you are investing, why you're doing this, what you're doing. All right. So don't go with every of these waves, because then you get tired out, before it actually happens. And that's the problem with anticipation, and also with assumption, which is one of the outcroppings of our ego mind, that sort of tries to control the future, tries to do these projections. And I don't know if you can see this, but there's a connection here with the crypto market and us as energetic beings. So don't shy away from bringing these things into connection. And being professional and detached does not mean cut off. That's very important to internalize. You can be an investor, a business person, a professional in whatever it is that you're doing, using your intuition, using your precognitive abilities, using your hunches and your energetic sensitivity. In fact, I will or I can project for you that you're going to make better choices that are more effective, more advantageous for you in the long run. They may seem like frustrating in the moment, but there is a higher vibratory guidance there, that if you can trust in that and let go of your need to control the situation, that can get you into this place of, calm, of inner peace. Now, I'm not really striving for inner peace during the holidays. That is barely impossible, because I know that there's, extremely high rates of relapses, of domestic violence, of crime, of all kinds of things, anxiety, depression, and so forth. So I know, for me as an energy worker in the service, those times are not peaceful, but in my personal life, it can be peaceful. So I'm focusing on really reducing the amount of exposure, as I call it, energetic exposure, and the things that I already know that don't work. Remember, on the first day we talked to Jeff Casper, who was an energy clearer, and said, sometimes you just got to cut it off. Sometimes it's just not efficient. Are there things that you can do differently with the Christmas shopping, instead of going out 5 minutes before you have to be somewhere, do this, like a month ahead of time. Or if you have to go out, I have to go out tonight, because I didn't have any time until now. Then do this at a time, like, I don't know if you're aware of this, but by the time I will be going out shopping, it will be like 9 p.m. Or actually later than that. So, I'm doing nighttime shopping, and it's the most wonderful thing. There's barely anybody there. All right, so find the ways that work for you. It works for me when I go shopping at times where there's only very few people in the store. It makes a big difference for me. If I go shopping at peak times, even during like a normal weekday, I usually go home nauseous. I feel completely trashed. I get very short fused. I get angry. I yell at my kids. I just get like really sort of tense. If I go shopping, when there's barely anything going on, then it's actually a beautiful experience. And I said this before. You can also use little tricks. For instance, plug in your earbuds and listen to relaxing music. Classical music or something, so that you don't. So that you're not under the influence of all that auditory bombardment. Most energetically sensitives are very auditorily sensitive. Okay, so if you can reduce that a little bit, then your system won't be pushed so hard to that place of no return when you lose it, when you get drained, when you fall apart or whatever. So as far as then dealing with the overall situation, at home and during the holidays, I found that this is the time also where a lot of people go into seclusion, into isolation. And isolation is something that is very common amongst energetically sensitives because of these dynamics that I talked about, because you basically experience the outside world as hostile, as bombarding, as attacking. And so it's easy for the ego to come to the conclusion that all people are mean out there, and that consumerism is bad, and that Christmas is bad, and to vilify everybody else, I recommend not to do this, because if you go into judgment, into judging other people for what it is that they're doing, then I want you to consider a few things. And all this, leads to having more compassion and being a bit more empathetic, really, and being more present. Most people don't know what they're doing. Seriously, they don't know what they're doing. They're completely unaware of how much they bombard you, of how much they push into you energetically. All right. And most people project their energies either out of white shadow. We talked about this yesterday. Listen to the recording from day 2. That was really cool, how we identified that white shadow is actually a form of an ego addiction. But, where was I? So when your energy goes low, that's when you tend to go into these coping mechanisms, and that's really the danger for you, but also for others. And if you just assume that everybody else is really just struggling, and they're just trying to get through like you, right? But they're like way less aware of what is going on. So when in these times, and the energy barometer for this week is on like dark red, expect that. What are you thinking? That's like going into a war zone and complaining about getting shot. You're going to get shot, if there's bullets flying around. So that for the understanding, but also really to see the struggle and what you experience as so bombarding or so hostile coming from other people is usually their shadow, either their shadow or their white shadow, things that they're keeping in the hidden, that they can't love about themselves, and for the most part that they're unaware of. And so the truly evil person, or this truly demonic force is actually more the exception, just so you know. But because, lower vibratory states within us attract those, darker experiences, darker circumstances, dark other people, there's dynamics going on. So if you go into that hostility, then you're much more likely to attract those kind of negative or attacky type of situations. This doesn't mean that you have to like send love to everybody who's misusing you or attacking you. That's not what I'm saying. Don't get me wrong here. On the contrary, you have to learn how to set proper boundaries. All right, but you have to learn to do this in a place, when you're in a good place, not when your energy system has already toppled over. Then just accept that the fact that you are low right now and cut everything off and say, I need some space. I need to, go back into my center. Maybe you need to release some energies through like yelling, or punching the bag or punching into a pillow, or preferably not by yelling at your kids, like I do sometimes, or kicking your pets or something. Those would be considered unhealthy release mechanisms. But try to release this pressure before it is too late. When you're caught in reactivity, when you're caught in anxiety, when you're caught in this hostility, when you're caught in this like fire putter outer mode that I mentioned before, it's too late. You have to cut it off, and you have to reset, and remind yourself, that seriously, this is not why you're here, to run around and get trashed by Christmas consumer energies, to just bring it back to like, what is all this about? Okay, I'm buying gifts because I want to express my care. I want to express my love. There's other ways you can do this. And even if you get the gift after Christmas, and instead write a beautiful letter, or, make something, that you've made on your own that has value. I do a lot of self-made gifts for Christmas, and I enjoy this. I start baking like about a week before Christmas, and I do like roughly 15 different kinds of cookies, and I put them together in little gift baskets for Christmas. That's a way where you can enjoy the process, of creating those gifts, and it makes you creative, and and not it's just more efficient energetically. And yes, Janelle is commenting here, staying centered and acting when you feel staying centered and acting when you feel inspired, rather than I have to, always makes things unfold more easily. That's absolutely correct. And here's a question from Energetic Guide. Do you reckon being triggered into guilt can lead to more isolation and loneliness? Yes, yes, and yes. And we will talk about this here in a minute, because this requires explanation, Energetic Guide. Julian comments, letting go of expectations was a message, giving a lot of space to let things unfold without any pressure. Yes, letting go of expectations. And yes, and Julian is participating in the Grace Goddess Sophia Marathon that is going on right now. So that was part of the message in there as well. Tomorrow we will have Shoshana Vigorito here as my panel guest. She's a licensed family and marriage counselor, and we're going to be talking about grieving, and unmet expectations, and how difficult this can be, especially, at sort of the peak of where everybody is supposed to be happy, right? And supposed to be loving. Okay, so we're going to talk about this with Shoshana tomorrow. But today I wanted to talk about exactly what Energetic Guide brought up, and that is like how how does this even happen that we sort of end up in this place of isolation, and I want or loneliness. I want to differentiate here first between inner and outer isolation. So there's an isolation that can happen through certain choices in your life. For instance, we live in a small mountain community. I work pretty much 24/7. You could say that I'm, pretty isolated from the world. I do travel from time to time, and I talk to people all day long from all over the world. So it's not that I'm lonely in that way, and it's not that I feel disconnected from the world. But on an outer level, I guess I look quite isolated. So I want you to discern the quality here. Just because you are out and about, like say, as an example, you work in a grocery store and you're with people all day long, that doesn't mean that you're not isolated. On the outside, you are not, but on the inside, this can actually lead to massive isolation energetically, and that is due to what we talked about here in the beginning, the need to protect yourself, the need to sort of cut down, this bombardment that is coming from the outside. And this is also the danger, because many of us energetically sensitives have been feeling this since their childhood, and made rather negative experiences with this. And so, when we have these empathetic abilities, it's very difficult sometimes to to be in the presence of people and not be able to talk about this, which most of us were told to do. If you don't have anything positive to say, then don't say nothing. Or children are only to be seen and not to be heard. There's plenty of these kind of phrases in our cultures that promote not fully expressing what we're seeing, what we're feeling. And therefore, it's something that most energetically sensitive people have in common, and that is that they tend to just want to stay away from the masses, because, quite frankly, it's physically unbearable. It's this headache, the nausea, the dizziness, the heart racing, all kinds of things. And this has nothing to do with psychology. Those are just energetic sensations that we have in public, and especially in crowded places. So the more crowded, the more dense, this energetic pressure, and the more energetic exchange occurs between people. And because nobody really knows what they're doing, except for, like this proverbial 1 out of 10, right? If they have training, you have this just massive mishmash of people's unconscious releases, their unconscious projections, and their unconscious, attempt to control the situation. And as energetically sensitives, you'll feel this physically. So if you've ever had experiences like this, then know that this is the reason why. And it's natural, to want to stay away from that a little bit. So what I'm suggesting here is that you become smart about it. You don't have to go into making other people bad. That is not the right way of approaching this either. What you need to become is a bit more efficient about this. Like I suggested earlier, go out at certain times. Only go out to places that your inner discernment sort of tells you that this is an okay place to go to. Avoid those places that, are specifically bad. And, if you are one of those poor souls that have to work in places where you literally been exposed to this, every day, like say as a waitress, or, you are the cashier at the register, or you're the person on the phone in customer service. These things occur also in, over the phone, say, and they even occur through watching a video. So, for me, I've mentioned this before, to actually go out and produce videos and to put my face out there, it was a very tough decision for me, because as an energetically sensitive, I pick up on all these projections that people have when they watch my videos. And so you see, this is very complex, and the more you train yourself, the more fine-tuned you get there. So when it comes to holidays and mingling, and taking showing up and going to social functions or family gatherings, then be smart about this. Okay, make sure that, first of all, you're well grounded. Make sure that you're well rested. Take a nap before you go. Drink lots of water. Refrain from fatty foods and sugary foods. And of course, too much alcohol, because all these factors lead to your etheric immune system going down. And they will also lead to the feeling of disconnection. in a way of leading to isolation, because when your energy system is really low, it's very hard for you to be present, because to a degree you like constantly busy warding off things, and your energy doesn't really have enough space to really open up and to really be with someone. Therefore, I strongly recommend that you prepare yourself, not just putting nice clothes on or makeup on or something like this, or, getting lots of gifts, but prepare yourself energetically. And then, of course, it depends on whom you're with. If you go into really big parties, where there's a lot of noise, there's a lot of, drinking, for instance, you've got to be careful. Those are usually very bombarding situations, and chances are that your defensiveness is going to get triggered, and that you're going to either act out or have some kind of frustrating experiences that can then lead to you absorbing a lot of energies in those environments. And when it comes to like your very own family, the one that you have at home, then I suggest that you channel all these energies before they escalate too much. As with your children, make your children become part of the whole deal. Make them bake cookies with you, make them do the decorations with you, clean up, even the chores around the holidays or getting ready for the holidays. Your kids, they're like, their energy is completely trashed. The younger they are, the more trashed they are. Our 3-year-old here is not going to bed on, the last couple of days. He couldn't fall asleep until like 11 p.m. and he'd wake up at 5:30. So the less they sleep, and the more excited they get, the less they can't sleep, and the more sort of oversensitive their nervous system gets, the more they complain, the more they demand, the more stuff breaks, the more they get hurt. And here you have this like sort of nuclear family type of situation, because you're not only trying to perform, you're not only trying to make stand there in a good light for others, which is related to white shadow. You're also dealing with sort of the people's energy systems worn down from just getting there. Okay, so put all these things into account and be compassionate, and most of all, be compassionate with yourself. All right. But the isolation, and somebody commented here, I think Cheryl said there's a big difference between being alone and lonely. Absolutely. So just the fact that you actually going to meet people does not mean that you're going to feel less isolated. In fact, if I think back in my own past, there were many, many situations over decades where I was very social. I had a lot of friends, a lot of, all this outdoor stuff going on in my life, but I felt very, very lonely within. And today, like I said, I'm practically isolated. However, internally, I'm not. I'm super connected, and that is because I learned how to shift this around, how to channel this around. Okay. So Brian comments, I found when overprotecting myself, I missed out on many opportunities that may have added to my growth. It's a delicate balance. Yes, very beautiful said, Brian. I agree. And even if we miss out on these things, even if we find ourselves in this overprotective or warding off type of situation, if you can just let go of this notion that that all people out there are mean and evil, and just see them for who they are, and see them in their own struggles, and if you judge less, then it's a lot easier. And you know what? The best conversations are the ones when you sit down with somebody and reflect on the situation and actually get a good laugh out of it. Make it lighter. This is an energy that's wanting to come in right now, making things lighter, focusing on things that make everything more easy, lighter for you. And really, what all this is supposed to do for us is that we realize that we're not alone in this world. I mean, this is a big part of my work here at transCODES, to put this out, like, hey, you're not alone, This is textbook energetic sensitivity, what you're experiencing. But in order to overcome, this overprotectiveness, we have to have some good experiences first. And we're going to get here to the recommendations of how to do this in a second. Janelle comments, letting go of expectations and doing what makes you feel joyous in the season makes you feel more compassionate and loving towards others. Others feel less pressure, yes, and you can be more free to give their best. The more connected, Denise is commenting, the more connected to one's heart, the more connected we feel to others, regardless of any situation or what goes around and goes on around. And I agree with you. However, there is a sort of technical thing with energies, and that is that exposure will lead to depletion. Okay, it is only if there is a synergetic effect going on, only if there is like a real beautiful mutual exchange going on, where the sum of the parts becomes more, and you actually coming out inspired and invigorated and energized, regardless maybe of some of the outer things. But this requires you to actually be present in your heart, like you said, Denise, and that is something that needs to be practiced, because most of us, and not just energetically sensitives, because a lot of the things that I talked about are kind of classic psychology, but for us the bombardment is stronger, and therefore we tend to resort into this isolation more quickly, and that is the disconnection from others. So the total isolation from others is not going to save you guys. You're still going to pick up collective energies, and you're still going to go through your ups and downs. And even if you cut all contact to the outside world, you will still feel this, because you are a part of the whole. And that is really sort of the message of the day, is first of all to see yourself as part of the whole, regardless of all the flaws, of all the things that are not really going that well. But not just not just others, but also in regards to yourself. How can you, judge the world that, granted, there's a lot of stuff going on right now, politically, financially, environmentally, sociologically, that is not very good. But if you are, as sensitive as you say you are or think you are, then you can also feel where this is leading, and that is change. And change is evolution. It's an opportunity for growth. All right. And so is socialization. So is going out and meeting people and connecting with people. And that's where the qualitative discernment has to come in. Is it important to be with many people? Not necessarily. If you can't connect with any of them, skip it. If, however, you have this one friend, that you have a really, really cool connection with, then, focus on that person, and, do a Christmas with just two friends, and you can go out together. That's fine, as long as there's a good connection between the two of you. Or, and this is, I think, the most common case, learn how, or not learn sounds so teachery, but, really focus on connecting within. I've had some of the most beautiful Christmases in the past where it was just me and my dogs, but just me. And I just love it, the silence and the beauty of the inner connection. And that's when I learned that this is nothing I need to fear. So I don't need to surround myself with tons of people just so that I don't feel alone. That would be a coping mechanism, and that triggers all the incongruence and all the addiction stuff in us. No. It's also that something that triggers the guilt in us, okay? So energetic guide, you asked earlier, can guilt also trigger this need for isolation? Absolutely, okay? Guilt is just way underneath just not wanting to feel the pain of loneliness or the fear of getting attacked. Guilt is just a little lower than that. And you know what I'm going to do, because I can? I'm going to share with you a vibrational scale that I came up here to help people to identify what energetic sensations they're experiencing, what energetic states they're in. And oops, sorry for that. Anyway, yes, here we are. And there you will see why that is the case. So let me put this on the screen for you guys so you can actually see. It's a bit difficult to read, I think. So I'm going to have to make this really big. Okay, there you go. So what you asked me is if guilt, is what triggers isolation, and guilt on this scale of energetic states, and you'll see there's two major differences here: the ego states and the true self states. So these are basically lower vibratory states that have this sort of downward spiral, and these are higher vibratory states that have an upward spiral. But guilt is at the very bottom here, at the very bottom of what can get triggered when we are in a low vibratory state. And for most of us with guilt attachment, it is something that we feel is coming from the outside. Historically, it's just something that most of us were guilt tripped most of the time. Okay, and therefore, we have this tendency of being afraid of being with others, who could, guilt trip us, even if they've never done so. But the situation may remind us, and Christmas is one of those situations where we all, not just Christmas, all holidays, and all religious holidays for that matter, where we all have the same energetic patterns, and that is this anticipation, the building of pressure, and then sort of the escalation, the acting out, and then sort of going really low. And for most of us, guilt is a result of acting out. Okay, so this was actually part of our marathon today. But here's the deal with guilt. Most people have guilt and pain, or guilt and anger cycles, and that is that someone who wants to be really good and who wants to be nice, and it's a light worker disease, to think that spirituality means that you have to be super nice to everybody and suck everything up, is in actuality we have a problem with healthily releasing anger. And so what we're doing is we're repressing all of the absorbed stuff, only to get to that place where we really can't hold it anymore and everything collapses, and we act out, or we do things that are not according to our higher values. And then what? And then we feel guilty, and then we go really low on this vibrational scale, to the bottom, and go through a lot of pain. And then we go through the fear of the pain, and then we get to anger, we still don't know how to release it. And so it just builds, and then it explodes, and then we go back into guilt. So this is a very common cause from an energetic point of view, why people isolate, because they are trying to avoid the situation in the first place. But and those of you who work with me know this, there really is no way to prevent you from interaction with others, because we are a part of the whole. And the more you separate yourself out from the whole, the more isolated and the more lonely and the more disconnected you will feel. That is the whole truth. So everything that makes you special, everything that elevates you, everything that degrades others, everything that looks at others with disdain or judgment separates you and makes you lonely. It's a bit different, from how we were told. So yes, this is not measured in with how many people you socialize. However, coming to the end of our daily update, how to prevent this and how to more positively deal with this. I would recommend you guys to go into this connection within, regardless. This is pretty much needed for our overall health and well-being, and to maintain, higher vibratory states. So if you get caught in anger all the time, or degradation, you constantly make negative remarks about others, sorry, but you're not going to ascend, or whatever you call that. You're never going to arrive in higher vibratory places, because it's impossible for your energy to go there. You keep reinforcing it. You keep re-energizing, your lower vibratory part, and you're segregating, you're separating, you're disconnecting at that moment, and that is not supported by the divine universal energy. On the contrary, if you go into your true self, if you connect within, if you learn how to calm things down, how to silence your mind and so forth, you'll begin to feel this center of your center that I talked about yesterday. The unified self is a wonderful, wonderful way of finding the center of your center, and there you will find that you're never alone. Okay, and with that, you learn to trust other people again, and you become empowered, and you become more confident in interacting. And guys, I can't tell you, but it can be one of the most relieving things ever, to get a healthy laugh out of talking about all your funny coping mechanisms, all right? Because as soon as you start talking about it, if you believe it or not, most people feel the same, okay? And this is something that connects you. So one way to prevent isolation and loneliness from within is to connect again, to perhaps even, go out of your comfort zone a bit, and say, I've been in isolated places and lonely places where, just the decision to actually take my car, drive to Starbucks or any other coffee shop and sit there, for 15 minutes could help me shift my energy out of that desperate, out of that disconnected place. It wasn't about the other people. It was just like overcoming my fear of connecting and moving out of my comfort zone. But in general, and this is also the energy tip of the day from me, is you need to find ways to release energies. And for most energetically sensitives, anger is one of those sore spots, I know I used to have a huge problem with expressing anger, and quite frankly, I did not even know this until I had kids. Then I found out that I had a lot of anger in me, and then I actually had to learn how to deal with this because it's, unspiritual, or it's not feminine, or whatever, whatever that expectation is that's behind that. So my tip of the day is to learn how to release anger as it arises and prevent this inner pressure from building up. Okay, and this could be through writing in a journal, write things down, and you may perhaps even sort of make an appointment with yourself and do a rant, on a piece of paper. And then when you're done, first of all, you'll feel the relief, and then you take the everything that you've written down and you burn it, in the candlelight, and make a nice toast and say, I'm releasing, all these past experiences, and I don't want these things to linger in me. That's the standpoint that helps you, to develop the willingness to do this. Another thing is to literally go and do, punch the bag. Those of you working with me know this. I have uncounted times recommended to maybe try out a martial arts class, kickboxing, or anything with impact, anything where there's like a grunt involved, because the grunting, is first of all very grounding. So it's related to that, but it also helps to release, things out of your fifth chakra, out of your throat chakra, this which is very compromised right now. And so that combination of first and fifth chakra, through grunt work, through impact work, through very aerobic work, chopping wood, and anything sort of that goes into this direction, is a wonderful, wonderful energy work technique to release anger. So my tip for you guys, prevent all this pressure from building up in the first place. And trust in your inner connection. Yeah. And if you have to, get out of your comfort zone. Don't stay in that lonely place. It's not good. Even if you just go outside and take a walk around the block or whatever, this will already help you to shift your energy into the next higher vibratory place. Yes, jump rope. Jump rope is great, Denise. I know we used to jump a lot too. All these those hodgepodge games and so forth are really, really healthy, actually. So yeah, but if you have to, punch the pillow. Try not to visualize a person when you do this, because energetically that energy gets sent to that person. And well, if this person is energetically sensitive, they kind of know you sending all these negative vibes to them. And if they're not, they may actually end up in desperation, or attack their own children or their dog or whatever, because now they have all this energy stuck in them that they can't get rid of. All right. So yes, please, we are about to close here. If you have a question, then please ask this now. Hi, Brisbane. Hi, Costa Rica. Oh, I'm talking about Costa Rica a lot lately. Yes, this seems to be a good plan B, but I would need a little more info. Okay, so yes, cursing is something that can help to verbally release, but the problem with cursing is that, first of all, we usually do this in presence of others more and more expressively, which is a form of projection of our energy. And even if you don't mean to, but it has a real negative effect on the people around you, and these energies also linger in places. Okay, so I have a 17-year-old son who likes to game at nights, and I can clear the house as much as I want to, with all those curse words that are getting accumulated at night. It's like starting from scratch every day. So cursing, yes, helps you temporarily, but it's better to find other ways. Physicality, involve your body in releasing anger, because it's very, very effective. Okay. Talking helps too, but in my experience, doing this grunt type of thing, lifting heavy things. I often joke about this, but you should see me vacuum, and you should see me mopping my floors. This is a grunt exercise, and I push my energy into the ground while I'm doing this on purpose, because I'm aware of the grounding and releasing effect of that. All right, everybody. Okay, well, thank you all so much for coming. I'm very excited about tomorrow. And I know most of you are probably not going to come tomorrow because, it's Christmas Eve. And I had a few requests, not to do it at 7 p.m. because obviously that's the time where everybody's sitting together. And even my family asked. So here is day 4 on December 24th here on U.S. Denver time is going to be at 2 p.m. 2 p.m. Denver time. Okay, so 5 hours earlier. If you are planning on watching the recording, it won't matter to you anyway. And now, the people that are here, first of all, thank you so much for the support and for your questions. I want more of those comments and questions. This was awesome today. And secondly, push that like button, okay, and subscribe to my channel. These are things, that help me, to do this work with your help. And it's also cool, for others to see your name. So the chat stays alive, in this live recording. All right. It has been a pleasure with you here. And I wish you guys all a wonderful pre-holiday, or, some holidays are already going on. I hope to see you tomorrow with Shoshana Vigorido, licensed marriage and family counselor, talking about dealing with grief and dealing with unmet expectations. All right. Bye, everybody. See you tomorrow. Bye-bye.